I'm sorry, they're really killing me.
Hey, Tim, it's Bruce. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we got you, Bruce.
Loud and clear.
Great. Thanks.
Okay. So I guess we'll get started to September Remac or 303. We have a quorum. So first, I'd like to get a motion to approve the minutes from June. Don, did I get a nod from you? Okay, just waiting for that. Okay, second, I'd also like to introduce Dr. Joanne McDonough. She's in her second round as being a medical director for an ER, but fortunately, she was insulated from everybody here by me when she was at Ellis. So she didn't have to deal with any of us then. So welcome, Dr. McDonough. She's taking over at Saratoga. So disciplinary actions, Jovente, Osterhout, Albany, surrender certification effective 8/7/23, violations part 800. Brian Torres, Spencer Port, New York.
I'm on mute. So, okay.
Hello. Hi, Charmaine. It's Jean above the channel. How you doing?
Folks, can you mute?
I am
Can
driving
everybody
on the
mute?
thruway, so this is a great time to talk.
Perfect.
It would be if you could mute.
You wanted me to put the deposit down on the cruise form. It's $600 per person. And then after we do that, we could, go
Who
to
is
if you wanted to
that?
host them. I can give you that price, or if you want it separate, if you want it transfers. But in the meanwhile, I have to.
Can everyone? Tim,
Yeah.
can you mute all?
Gotcha. Can you email me the cruise itinerary, just so I can see it? And then, let's see, it's 3:00.
Can you
I
please
should be
mute?
off.
Tomorrow would be fine.
Okay, tomorrow I'll call you with the credit.
Tim, do you have a mute all option?
Okay. Thanks, Charmaine.
Thanks, Jean.
Tim's working on it.
Bye-bye.
Tim is working on it.
Can everyone please mute if you're not talking? Here and there is fine, but when you have the entire background conversation, it's hard to move on. Okay, and back to the exciting reading in disciplinary actions. Brian Fernandez, Bronx, New York, censured effective 7/15/23, civil penalty of $1,000. Penalty saved for no violations and violations of part 800. And Kyle Keene, Syracuse, New York, former reprimand, civil penalty $2,000, probation for 3 years for violations of part 800. So Don, operations meeting report.
Okay, sure. I think pretty much everybody was there before almost, but we'll go through pretty much all of it. We had a discussion on ED wait times, which are certainly becoming longer. As probably most people noted in the Times Union, Albany, Mount St. Peter's had the award of being some of the longest waits in the state, which is pretty amazing. Albany Med was number 2, St. Peter's was number 3. Unfortunately, it probably doesn't take into account the fact that the city hospitals, there are so many city hospitals, and there are only a few hospitals up here in upstate New York. Hospice protocol was brought to the collaborative protocols, and that'll be discussed a little bit more, which hopefully will end up the next time we put the new protocols out. Alternative med list that's being worked on at CMAC and SEMSCO. The GEO's law, Mike mentioned, where in Suffolk County, police officers are going to be required to carry EpiPens. Hopefully that will not turn out to be the problem. State to be rather expensive. CARES, there's a little discussion on that. Steve and Scott gave a good discussion on the reduce the use of lights and siren for their agency. 68% reduction in their use, which is excellent. But as was mentioned, may not apply to areas where there's an increased population density, traffic becomes a problem. There were a number of courses at Hudson Valley and at Cobleskill, as well as at Remac. And there was a quick discussion about their issues with medication replacement at Samaritan Hospital that will be looked into by the powers that be. Hopefully be resolved very quickly. That's it. Any questions? Oh, CMAC and SEMSCO next month. Everybody is invited.
Okay, Remsco, following our lead, finally took the month of August off, so no meeting for Remsco. CMAC we did. QI, Dale, Mike. And it looks like Mike is not on. Nope, he's on. Mike?
I'm on. I just couldn't unmute. I apologize.
Okay.
I'm one of the people here all sitting on our own devices at Remo. So I'm in the kitchen, so we're not echoing. So although I still hear an echo from the other room. Big thing really we talked about today at QI is going to be starting to look at STEMI, stroke, trauma, and secondary transfers where better decisions could have been made in the first place. We had a long discussion about hospital capabilities and how folks could better understand what the capabilities of the hospital they were bringing the patients to, and how that would ultimately impact care. But it was difficult to see what the best way to get that information was. So it was a good meeting, setting the grounds for future work. Setting the grounds for future projects. Something I think is important for us just to take a quick pause on and recognize we've got folks from the ARAMS region on board with us here today. I'd like to make sure we recognize them, that they're here. And moving forward, these are going to be combined ARAMS and Remo meetings, just to make sure that we're doing what we can to support our colleagues from our west.
Okay, thanks, Mike. And yes, I was supposed to be there today, but wonderful back to school activities did not give me a window to drive down there. Okay.
I have a couple of questions about QI.
Go for it, dude.
So as part of the QI committee, I used to participate in different types of QI stuff. One of the things I had been doing even before I was part of St. Peter's is I was doing response times and wall times. And I can't do that anymore because I don't have access to this data anymore. And so I'm trying to understand exactly how we get access to the data, like by what's the decision that somebody should or should not have access to the Remo data to pull reports and to do some data crunching. At one point, it seemed like everybody on the QI committee or who had interest in being able to do it was able to do it. And then it got very selective. And then I really just don't understand the rhyme or reason how we got the people who were on the ability to get the data, how they got there and how others did not get there, how others got removed. And so I'm looking for an official directive on how we are inclusive of that. I thought that that's the point of the region and our committees being inclusive and not exclusive. So I'm looking for some direction on how we get access to the data and by what authority we have to decide people who do and do not have access to that data.
So Dean, the projects that we've done have always had specific people tasked with performing that data. Wall times, for example, which was a project that you worked on a couple of years ago. That was one of the ways that we did this. These were all specifically designated regional projects. Your designation most recently was actually as a representative of St. Peter's Hospital. So you could see the patients that were potentially being brought to St. Peter's, and also given the ability to find patients who were secondarily transported to St. Peter's. So you could get the whole story for the caregivers at that tertiary care center. But anytime that we've given access to data on a regional basis, it has always been because there has been a specific regional project that an individual has been working on, and that access has been designated specifically for that purpose. I certainly think that a policy that the regional EMS medical director, Remac chair, or executive director of Remo can grant access into regional charting or regional charting access specific for projects associated with program agency or with the Remac would be a very reasonable policy for us to codify. And I think you could take the time that Tim could then put that policy together and bring it to the next Remac.
So the project you spoke of that I was involved with, that was a continuing project, and I did that report probably every 3 months to keep track of where things were. And then when I went to work at St. Peter's, I was doing it every single month to produce that same report. And I would continue to reproduce that report on a regular basis if I had access to the data. So I'd like to formally request that I get access back to that data so I can continue to watch wall times and the market distribution of calls as it relates to those wall times.
Actually, as I would point out, Dean, I don't remember those being reported out here. So I think that's something that we can allow Tim to put together a formal policy that we can then discuss concretely at the next meeting.
Hey, Dr. McHugh, Scott.
Yeah.
Just a point of order, I guess. While I don't think the policy would look any different, no matter which body it comes from, I would maybe argue that the REMSCO is the right body to approve a policy. It's data that's filled with patient information that should have a very specific privacy policy surrounding it. And that should probably be done by the governing body that oversees the program agency and not the Physicians Council. So again, not that the policy will look any different coming from one versus the other, but I just think maybe it ought to come out of the REMSCO.
You can also make the case that it's wall time, it's an operational issue and not a clinical issue. So you could bring it up there at the next meeting.
Yeah, I'm
Okay.
not on the REMSCO anymore, so somebody else can do it. But in any event, just my 2 cents.
I lost track of that.
Very reasonable thought, Scott. And let's get some advice on the best place to issue that policy.
Just know that this feels very one-sided, and we want everyone to be inclusive of cares and specific things that are like a favorite topic of discussion. But a hot topic of discussion was the wall time and the waiting time that I was constantly bringing up, and I was constantly watching, and I was constantly putting out. And now all of a sudden it's gone. And so, I don't think it's unreasonable to continue on doing that until we have a formal policy, where I was already doing it for the longest time, and now I'm not doing it at all anymore. And to be honest with you, I thought it was helpful. I thought, every place I reported out and every place that everybody wanted to know about it, they all thought the information was very valuable and it was very objective. So again, I'd like to request that I get that access back to be able to continue to do that in the interim.
Yeah, no one's saying we shouldn't be reporting. It's just kind of where where the policy and who should purport or produce that. So we'll get back to that. So agency updates, fortunately, nothing for them. Public access defibrillation, State Auto Dealer Safety Group, St. Gobain Abrasives, CSX Transport, Camp Onita, New York State Bar Association, Saratoga National Cemetery Honor Guard, Planet Fitness Albany, Bethlehem Children's School, Cap Region Medical Eye Consultants. New business. So Don has been head of CMAC for a few years now, and we're finding out that he is still Ailey's alternate. So we need to find another alternate for the CMAC. So I'm looking for nominations.
So I apologize that I have not discussed this with him yet, and I don't see him on the line. But the person that I would suggest as my alternate would be Dr. Hayashi, so that we can start looking at the next generation of physicians, getting more of a statewide view of EMS.
Any other nominations?
Just a question for Dr. Daly. I'm taking the minutes here. Don't know how to spell Hayashi, so if you could spell that.
Hayasshi. Just as it sounds, clearly.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So we'll give him some time to digest being voluntold this.
Well, actually, just so everybody online can know who Dr. Hayashi is, for those that have not interacted with him. Dr. Hayashi was actually a longstanding Remo paramedic who ultimately went to medical school and residency in emergency medicine. Just graduated from the EMS fellowship at Albany Med. He will be participating as EMS medical director for several local agencies and will be engaged with LifeNet of New York as well. So he will be maintaining a rather full plate, but he has an interest in a career in EMS and very active pre-hospital care. He also is doing a significant amount of pre-hospital responses as well, particularly across Rensselaer County.
So I guess
We should probably, he's been nominated. We would vote on
nominate him pending
on
his
his
acceptance.
application.
Okay. Do I have a motion to nominate Dr. Hayashi as the CMAC alternate?
Make that motion.
Okay, second. Did anyone second that?
Mike, you could second it.
I can't second my own motion, Don.
I'll go ahead and second it. Bill Fisher.
Okay, Bill, thanks, Bill. Okay. Any opposed? Okay, all in favor? Okay. We will now inform Dr. Hayashi of his sentence. Okay. Next up, Mike, get back up for CARES.
So CARES, as most of you will remember, is the cardiac arrest registry to enhance survival. The folks in Buffalo have taken great ownership of implementing this on a statewide basis. We were the second area of the state to initially get involved with it. And it's generated some fantastic data for us. Over the course of the last year, we actually dropped off in terms of our data enrolling system. We're encouraging agencies to get involved and enroll patients on their own, and moving to try to get as many of the ARMS agencies engaged as well. All of the hospitals are already engaged on the outcomes side of that data. And it is a fantastic quality assurance tool for agencies to review their cardiac arrests internally on. So this is something where if your agency is not actively engaged in putting your own data into CARES, please reach out to some of the agencies that have been doing this very successfully, Guilderland, Colony, and the agencies up in Saratoga County, for example. And they can certainly give you a little bit of more of the background. But it's not a great lift. It's the QI that you should be doing for cardiac arrest anyway. And then it ultimately gives you some nice metrics and then builds it out from a regional and ultimately statewide perspective for cardiac arrest survival. You know, the most basic answer is that, you know, you can't really measure something. You can't fix something if you don't measure it. This is our chance really to measure accurately across the region. And it's a great tool. So thank you all for supporting it.
Thank you, Mike. Lights and sirens. You guys already talked about when we did the highlights.
Steve, you want to give a quick update on the lights and sirens she did for operations? That would be great.
Sure. Excuse me. Was just mentioned at the last meeting, looking to see, get some information relative to the policy that we instituted. Oh, I want to say it was October. Yeah, it was late. No, maybe it might have been a little bit later. It was in the fall of last year. Was looking through some data. I'd be happy to share our policy in the reduction of lights and sirens with any organization that would like to tackle this individually. I know it's not really capable to cookie cut and put to just another organization probably identically to how we have it here. But in a nutshell, we've reduced our lights and sirens responses to 68%. We do priority dispatch through our our 911 center here in Columbia County. Effectively, our Alpha, Bravo, and Charlie responses are no longer associated with the lights and sirens response, as well as our Delta responses to medical facilities, that being doctors' offices, rapid cares, nursing facilities, anything of that nature. So effectively, it's really just Delta or Priority 1 responses to residences, and our policy is written that it allows the senior provider on the call to make a judgment call if they deem it to be appropriate for the use of lights and sirens, and then they clearly delineate that in their documentation. And then along with that, the responses from either a facility or scene to a hospital as well are significantly reduced in the use of lights and sirens to the point of almost none at all. We will continue to look at the metrics in-house here. I don't believe that there's enough time. There were some questions at the previous meeting relative to overall patient outcome. If we've seen a decrease on the surface, there is definitely nothing notable that I can think of where a patient outcome has been detrimental as a result of not responding with lights and sirens, and as well the safety of the community. But we will continue to monitor these metrics, and you know, out of anything, again, as I indicated before, every geographical location could be different. Every agency is different, of course, but a recognition by all organizations that this is a direction that we should all collectively be moving for our providers, our patients, and the community at large to improve the safety of everyone is paramount.
All right, thanks, Steve. Any other discussion on that? I think it's a pretty long time coming policy. So next up, Mike, Geo's Law.
So a little bit of background for everybody. A few years ago, some local politicians here, as well as one representative from Long Island, co-sponsored a bill that would have required every law enforcement officer in New York to carry an epinephrine auto injector. Through some very collaborative work with some of the local sheriffs, as well as these politicians, the bill was ultimately changed to allow law enforcement officers to carry epinephrine auto injectors, but not require it. At that time, as well as today, we still continue to seek good data to find out exactly how many patients are impacted by the delay between a law enforcement officer arriving and a EMS provider arriving to the scene of a patient with anaphylaxis. Anaphylaxis itself is actually quite rare. Anaphylaxis that is life-threatening is even more rare. But by report, the case of Gio, who is a Giovanni, and I cannot remember his last name. I apologize. But it was a case on Long Island where he had untreated anaphylaxis and died. And that was the tragic case that prompted all of this. The reason I bring this up to this group is that Suffolk County just passed their own version of this. It's going to require every law enforcement officer in Suffolk County to carry an epinephrine auto injector. We have not seen any need for this locally here. I would ask everybody to please, just keep your ears to the ground. If you hear of people considering whether or not this is something that's important. What very frequently comes up is the commentary of law enforcement officers are carrying Narcan and reversing opioid overdose, and therefore they should also have the ability to treat anaphylaxis. And I can certainly understand how that comparison comes up very quickly. But the number of cases of anaphylaxis that we've found that would need to be treated by law enforcement in order to make a difference in an outcome for the patient seems to be infinitesimally small. Does not mean that there may not be law enforcement agencies that would benefit from this, and places where there are delayed EMS responses where there might be benefit. But I think we should look at that on a more granular level than doing something that would ultimately cause significant expense across any of our counties without significant return on investment. But if anybody hears anything more about that, please let me know. We'll continue to watch this on a regional and statewide basis as well. Any questions?
Thanks, Mike. And I guess expanding check and inject to all law enforcement agencies would not be a reasonable option as well.
No, I think the idea of having law enforcement drawing up and administering medications in a crisis is outside their skill set. I think intranasal naloxone, great idea. Drawing up and administering a medication was something we actually considered early in the law enforcement naloxone program, because intramuscular naloxone is actually a lot less expensive. But very rapidly got away from that as an idea. There are a couple of different formulations of epinephrine that may actually change the way we look at and then treat anaphylaxis that are coming down the pike. There actually is a oral formulation that actually would be administered lingually of epinephrine that seems to have good bioavailability. It will be interesting to see whether or not that ultimately ends up coming to market, and then how it does in blinded studies with intramuscular epinephrine, which ultimately is what would have to be done, I suspect.
Okay, thanks, Mike. Next, someone put onto the agenda sedation post Ross, but
Yeah, Doc, you can scratch that agenda item.
okay. Next up, apparently Schoharie County has an open medical director position. Tim, do you have any more details on that?
I was contacted by Dan Bixby, who runs Schoharie County EMS. They are desperately seeking a medical director. I believe Dr. Fisher has gratefully or graciously stepped up to provide directorship in the interim, but I think his time is limited there. So I was throwing it out to this body if anybody knows someone that may be interested in assuming that directorship. And I just got word that Grand Gorge, which is a small ALS agency, down that way is also looking for a medical director. So if there are folks on this meeting that are looking for medical directorship, give me a holler, please.
Okay, thanks, Tim. And last up, we're looking into better access to image trend for the region. Emily is working with the state to get an actual price for what we would need to do for that. Any new items?
There's one more thing that I think is important for this body, and that's just that I would ask if we would all take a moment of silence to remember Earl Evans. Earl passed away last week after a long battle with several strokes. But Earl was one of the pillars that actually started Remo many, many years ago, and was our first executive director. He also was a colony paramedic for a long time, and quite frankly, a fantastic guy and a great friend. And he will be sorely missed. So we could take a moment of silence for Earl, please.
Thanks, Mike. And to not end on that note, Tom Williams, who many of you remember as an EMS fellow, had his cardiac arrest on mile 7 of, I think it was his 7th Ironman. He is now slated to come back to work in the next couple of weeks. So ended on a better note than former. Any other discussion, any other topics for next month? Okay. Can I get a motion to adjourn?
Actually, when is the next meeting? I thought it would be November. Let's skip a month. Now,
September.
December, we have meetings, I think.
No, we do September, October, we skip November, and then we have December.
Is that how we have
I mean,
could not remember. Okay.
that's why Tim, you want to double check on that, but I thought that's what we've always done. We skip November
Yeah.
and to get our 6 meetings in.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah, you're correct.
Okay.
Okay. We'll see you all then.
All right. See ya.
Yep.